Now, let's start the review of recent level 5 CI exam. And as you know, just like with level 4, level 5 also has two CI exams. And I think that both of them are pretty challenging, even more than L4M1 and L5M8. But if you prepare well, then of course we can totally pass these exams. So I'm talking about L5M1 and L5M4. First, with level 5, we have two CI exams. L5M1 is about managing teams and individuals. So it is nothing about procurement, but more about human resources management. Something about like how we can manage the individuals, how we can manage different people, and how we can organize the team and also develop that team. So these concepts are not about procurement. So sometimes they may not be very familiar to you, but it is part of the syllabus, and it may help you to prepare become a leader when the time comes. There are 4 questions in L5M1. Previously, it had 5 questions per exam, but now it only has 4. So I can list you the topics as I am showing on my screen here. And fortunately, I have very specific information about L5M1 questions. So I'm very confident that I could guide you through the specific question and how you can answer it. There are 4 questions here. The first one is about the psychological contract. Okay, sound familiar? This is a kind of mental contract. So it is not the legal one, but something happened in the mind of the employer and the employees. And the stronger this contract is, then the more bonds between employer and the employees. So a psychological contract could be a foundation for strong relationship between the employer, between the organization, and the workers on the other side. The second question about motivation, how to make someone wants to work and devote himself at work. And here we need to suggest a few ways to motivate the employees. The third question, yeah, I need to switch here. So the third question is about the impact of the teamwork. Just small switch. And it should stay here. The third question is about the impact of teamwork. Question number 3 is all the way about team management. So it means like, what does that mean by teamwork, and what could be the advantages as well as disadvantages of having a team? And the final question, pretty challenging. And this time we have a question about skill gap analysis. So it's part of managing the training program. Before we make a training program, we need to understand what could be the difference between the current skills and the future required skill. Therefore, we need to do the skill gap analysis. And this question is about what elements of a business that can be used to analyze the skill gaps. So you may see that it may be quite challenging, and actually then absolutely I think this one is pretty difficult for many students. And furthermore, it is question number 4. So you may some students may have lacked the time to finish this question. And so today, I think that I may spend a lot of effort on question number 4 here. Now, let's have another overlook about L5M4. The first question, pretty familiar, and also I think pretty straightforward about the advantages and disadvantages of early supply involvement. Even we don't need to learn L5M4 study guide to write this one. You can take a lot of information from level 4 to this question. Okay, so pretty straightforward. The second question about financial ratio analysis, and to select the strategic supplier in a certain scenario. So we have specific numbers here, and you need to calculate as well as comment on the financial ratios. The next question is about fixed and float exchange rate. So I don't have this specific question. I believe that it was about something like how these may affect our ability to purchase, right? So they are not something procurement may influence on. They are the arrangement or mechanism that the central bank set up. So they may bring some benefits as well as risk for the parties. And finally, we have the question about benchmarking. In fact, this is about the advantages of internal benchmarking over the external benchmarking. So we could have some answer. We may brainstorm some answer from this. And I think when I compare between L5M1 and L5M4, then L5M4 questions are somewhat more predictable. And I think they tend to be easier to answer. But L5M1, sometimes they are too long, like the question about motivation. Sometimes they are too ambiguous, like the skill gap analysis. So finishing L5M1 could be a pretty huge challenge. Now, I shall go into the details. So first, let's go into L5M1, managing teams and individual. The first question is about psychological contract. In case that you don't remember what it is, then this refers to the unwritten set of expectations that exist between the employer and the employee, and they are specific for each party. Okay, so it comprises of the belief, perception, and other expectations, the expectation beyond the formal written legal contract. And psychological contract is, in fact, more powerful than the legal contract. If someone believes that he is working in a good company, then of course he will be more loyal to that employer. So the strength and the connection under the psychological contract is absolutely influencing, and it may affect loyalty, motivation, and satisfaction at work. Here, with this question, I know that the question is about the 4 ways in which, yeah, before that, I need to say this question has a scenario about a company, about an organization, and they have some problems in dealing with their employees. Like the employees may demotivated, they don't want to work, they have very high turnover rate. It means like many people come and many people go. So they don't feel any attachment to that employer. So the question is, you need to identify 4 ways in which understanding the psychological contract would help resolve these problems. Here, in other words, we need to identify the implication of psychological contract to the turnover rate and the motivation and job satisfaction. I think that for this question, you can go directly into brainstorming, and you may list something like how a strong psychological contract may affect the outcome. So with the understanding of psychological contract, then the employer may it may help the employer as well as the employee to understand each other expectation. The expectation here KPI, they are created based on the interaction and communication between the two parties within the employment relationship, and it can be created before the contract is formed, possible during the recruitment or during the advertisement of employment.
776 triệu 270.
Sorry, I have a WhatsApp phone call, but I think we could continue. Maybe she wants to join this meeting, but she can't. So let me continue. The expectation under a psychological contract is pretty, they can be formed through the interaction, and even before interaction, they can be formed through the impression of the other party. So you can imagine like this: when we looking for a new job, when we are looking for a new job, then we can see the advertisement, we can see the job posting on LinkedIn and website, and then we can see that, we can feel that the some aspects of the company culture, like they may welcome the newcomer, they may value the talents and so on. So the expectation here are built based on the interaction like that, even before we meet them in person. On the other side, the employer, the organization may have some first impression with the candidate, not before they meet each other. For example, you may send them your resume, and they may see that, and then they may feel something like impressed by your background, impressed by your achievement. So they may have pretty high expectation of you. But when it comes to the real work, then both parties may be disillusioned. The employee may feel that the environment here is not as friendly and welcoming as he thought. So he may feel like the whole world collapse, and of course, he may not want to work. Okay, so expectation here and managing expectation here is pretty important. Second, psychological contract. Understanding a psychological contract may also help to identify the root causes of high turnover rate, of dissatisfaction, and underperformance. With underperformance, because the employee expectations are not met, they are not met. Therefore, they may feel disillusioned, and they don't want to show up at work anymore, because like that they want something different, and they may have other expectation of the employer. On the other side, the employer may have the same reaction. When they feel that the candidate is not good as they expect, they may feel they may feel disappointed, and they may not want to engage with that employee anymore. But anyway, this is asymmetric relationship, because the employer normally has higher power than the employee. So the impact on employee tend to be larger on his mental and his psychology. So as a result, then the employer should manage the expectation better, because they are an organization, and they need to do that more professionally. Next, understanding psychological contract may also guide both parties through the communication to re-establish the expectations and how to work with the other party. The expectation here may be shattered during the actual interaction, but they can be reviewed if both parties are honest about their ability and about what they can provide to the other party. Okay, so we need to have open, honest, and clear communication here, and just to rebuild the trust. So the key here is to have honest communication. Next, then understanding psychological contract may also help the HR to identify what kind of support the employee may expect. The employee may have a lot of expectation, but normally we can set up something like minimal. First, of course, is a livable wage. They want to work one job, and that job should provide them with sufficient financial income to support their life. That is the base one. Second, more people may want some people may want job security. They are not fired or they are not dismissed due to some nonsense reason. So with the clear contract on the dismissal, on the termination would help that. So when the employee has the security, they may feel more devoted at work. Third, they may want to have meaningful social connection. It means like the work here should provide some opportunity for relationship. We want to work with the friendly college, and they may become our best friend not just at work but also in life. So that is another expectation. And employee also wants the fairness and equity and equal opportunities for everyone who try. It is pretty straightforward. So a fair assessment of effort and a clear promotional or career route would help both parties to clear out the expectation. Finally, when the as you know, the psychological contract matters. Therefore, HR may use their knowledge of psychological contract to improve their brand image. And if they understand that the employee has some expectation and they provide that expectation in return, it may absolutely help them to improve the brand image. And of course, they may attract more talents. That is sometimes the objective of HR, of human resources, and also that may increase the productivity within the organization. Okay, so this is the first question. It requires 4 ways. So here, just in case you may have some other ideas, then let's find, you can select any 4 of here. Anyway, then with psychological contract, you need to learn the following. First, what it is. Okay, the definition, obviously. Second, how it is formed. And third, why does it matter? That is the third part that enables you to write the answer in this question. Okay, so the clearer and the stronger the contract is, then we have more motivated and more devoted worker. Now, let me move on the second question. Again, here we have a question about motivation and we have a scenario. And now, the common word here is somewhat different. We have the common word justify. So I don't care. Actually, I don't give much attention to the scenario here because whatever it is, then you may still provide similarly same answer. You may provide similar answers because they are just based on the same theories. So the question here is to justify the 5 ways to motivate employees of some organization, but using appropriate theories and examples. So the question is justify. Yeah, justify. Therefore, you need to not just list the 5 methods or 5 ways here, but you also need to write the reason behind that. Okay, so that is justify, and is the best that you can refer to someone or to some contributors or some theories that you know. So from study guide, and say that there are 4 theories. And here, you need to suggest by way. So it is fair to quote a theory or a method or a solution from each theory. Okay, one solution from each theory. And there should be some theory that give more than one answer, right? Anyway, then they tend to be quite similar. So we have 4 theories here: the content theories, process theory, equity, and goal or attainment theory. Each theory offer different perspective about motivation, and they may suggest different ways to motivate. So first, with the content theory, it is basically about it is basically about what may drive someone motivation. In other words, it says something like the job must provide something that the employee wants, and then he may devote himself to the job, right? That is about this theory. So if the job provides some material certainty and other non-material needs, then absolutely the employee may feel more attached at work, and he may make the best of himself at work. So with content theory, that the job must provide some benefits, must provide some decent benefits, and you may rely your answer based on the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Okay, so we have different layer of needs. Otherwise, there are other contributors, and you can consult the same guy as well. So you may list a few level of needs that meet the end here, like about the level watches, about the job security. Yeah, that is two foundation, two bottom layers of hierarchy of needs. Okay, so they need to have the uh, physio physical needs like sleep, eat, and they all contribute to the income. So we need to have the livable wages. Second, we have a layer of security, and then we have a layer of self-esteem and self-actualization. So at the security, of course, they want to have some job security. They are not dismissed or fired from the job due to some arbitrary reason, and there must be some legitimate concern to dismiss them from the job. So that is job security. Third, some form of self-esteem, like the job must provide some social connection, social status, and recognition. And then we have the self-actualization. It means like they should have kind of like opportunity to grow and to reach higher position if they want to have promotion. Okay, but other people may not want to have the promotion at all. They just want to keep the same job for years. Okay, they just want to do that same job. So their need may be in lower level, but we still need to provide them with that benefit to keep them motivated. Of course, in the scenario, you can see some details about the benefit system of that company. And you may suggest some changes, and you may use the content theory to justify that. For the process theory, it is about what kind of process or what kind of thinking or what kind of mental process may enable someone to be more motivated at work. So content theory is about what drives motivation. Then process theory examine the how motivation is created during the performance of job. There is a very famous theory here from Broom. We have Broom's expectancy model. According to him, we have 3 elements of motivation. First, the expectancy. Second, instrumentality. And third, balance. So expectancy is about the relationship between the effort and the performance. If they put a lot of effort and if they turn out to be good performance, then of course the employee may feel more driven to perform or more driven to put more effort. So, but it is not the case in real world. Sometimes we spend a lot of effort just to receive nothing. So we need to remove the obstacles that prevent the effort can be turned into performance. Mostly, we can invest in the training and in the technologies that remove these obstacles. For example, I want to negotiate with the supplier, and I put a lot of effort on preparing the negotiation. But at the end, then the supplier doesn't want to talk with me, so they cancel this. So I feel that my effort doesn't turn into any performance. I may feel demotivated. So in this case, for example, then we need to remove that obstacle. My employee wants to negotiate with the supplier and he has learned a lot about negotiation. He has prepared a lot. He has practiced himself and in front of the mirror. Now, he just needs some legitimacy to talk with the supplier. So I may give him some fancy job title, or I may give him the letter of attorney so that he has the sufficient authority to talk with the supplier. That is about removing the obstacle and enable the effort to turn into real performance. Second, we have instrumentality. Instrumentality is a relationship between performance and the reward. The reward should match performance. Pretty clear. So here we should have a reward system that encourage higher performance, and the better performance, the higher the reward. Okay, pretty clear, and you can write about this recommendation. And third, balance. Balance is about the reward alone, but they are about the value of the reward to that employee. And the value here, sometimes it is perceptive or perceived, or just about the employee's consciousness. So they may want something that not only material but also more psychological, more social, for example. So they may not want the payment bonus, but they may want some extra holiday, or they may want some formal recognition like a recognition like the employee of the month or some trophy for their accomplishment. So we need to design some formal reward that match their expectation. It's really hard to understand someone's expectation without communication. So it's the best that we as a manager, we communicate with them, communicate with the employees, and ask what they want, what they expect in the reward, so we can design the similar result. Sometimes we may have some kind of budget constraint or budget limit, but it is totally understandable, and you may ask the employee for more details, what they may expect from this. The next theory is equity. Equity means there should be some balance between the input and the output. The input here is everything that employee put into their work effort. So we may count their own background, like their previous qualification, education, their effort, their skills, their loyalty, also their performance so far or their investment into that task. And then the output here about what they receive. So mostly about the reward, but also about the result they want to see. So in equity theory, then we need to balance between the input and the output. But this is pretty challenging task because both input and output are perspective they are perceived. So it really depends. And as manager, we need to, again, communicate with them, understand their expectation, and understand their perception of value. So they may value something, they may expect something, and we need to clarify that. So here, again, it is about designing a better reward system and also communicate to understand their perspective about what effort they have put into and what output they may expect. And finally, we have goal or attainment theory. According to this one, someone could be more motivated if they are trying to do something a little bit challenging, but not too difficult. It means that that task is somewhat achievable, but they may require the employee to put a little more effort or a little more energy into it. So as a result, then it is about how we can design a performance measurement system. So we may set up the target and set up the task for different employees, and they may want to see something more challenging. They may want to try themselves with something new, and it's up to the manager, it's up to the team leader to create the system for such reward and performance measurement. So it works like the continuous improvement. First, we need to understand what task could be a little bit challenging for the employee and what could be the appropriate target for them. And we should carefully consider about the difficulty here. It should not be too difficult, just a little bit challenging so that may encourage the employee to achieve higher. So according to this theory, then it's all about designing the target system. It's all about designing the performance measurement, and the manager should he should put his own energy into this one. Furthermore, the attainment or the achievement here should match with some reward that also incentivizing. So it's also about designing a reward system that fairly or that encourage the better performance. Right, so we have 4 theories here, and you may take a lot of lessons from these theories. The bottom line here is that we can put our own effort as manager, focusing on the employee perspective and try different ways to motivate them. Now, we are moving to question number 3 about team working. So the specific question here is pretty straightforward. What are potential advantages and potential disadvantages of team working in procurement? Actually, this question I think pretty easy, and we may try to write something using different methods, like using brainstorming. So within a CI exam like this, you should not wait until the perfect idea should up, but you need to brainstorm anything come from your mind. And even the first idea is pretty bad or terrible, then you can try the second or the third idea. Okay, so it's worth that you put your own mind down here by writing down every possible answer. And don't worry about the expression, because you can also delete your own draft because it is computer based and just like typing within Microsoft Word. So you can delete any part that you don't like. So for this question and for other questions in C exam, the key point here that you need to brainstorm every potential answer. And for this question, I think that you can imagine a lot of answers, something like this. So team working is great due to several reasons. First, we can work with different people and we can learn from their own expertise, as well as it may provide more holistic view of the problem. Each person may contribute different perspective, and it may help you to identify the problems from different ways and also enable different solutions. So it could be pretty interesting here. Furthermore, due to the diversity of teamwork, then we can come up with more creative ideas and potentially higher productivity. And maybe some research supports this. And most people may want to have social connection with um, human other human being. So work yourself, have yourself into a team, and having a meaningful target may increase your satisfaction and your attachment to the job. For the disadvantage, then working with people is not easy because as a result, the personality may clash, the benefits may clash. So we may always have the conflicts, and these could be stressful. Furthermore, we could have some member or we ourselves could be some introverts, and we may fear of social interaction. So it may have some kind of social stress onto onto such individual. However, this stress could be relieved if the team has a culture of um, diversity, have a culture of appreciating the difference between the member. However, other teams may have some kind of toxic norms, and they may try to exclude certain group of people from the result. So that could be a harmful way to organize a team. And finally, teamwork takes time due to the potential conflict. So they may take time. Therefore, the result could be delayed, and they could be slower than giving the task to a single person. As you can see, in the study guide, we may have some answer for this, but here, during the exam, you can totally come up with some idea, and you can try to write them down and generate better ideas from writing your own brainstorming. Finally, we have question number 4 about skill gap analysis. So I don't remember whether it has a scenario or not. You can correct me here. But we have a question like this. Yeah, analyze 5 elements of a business to identify the skill gaps in a procurement unit. All right, may not be there may not be some scenario. There's no scenario here. So simply just ask about the elements of business. Here, before I go into the details, I need to analyze this question and show to you. You should analyze the question before you put down the answer. Yeah, so question number 4 has no case study. Thank you, Yuma. With this question, then you can see that you need to see the purpose here. It is about identifying the skill gap. So it's not about writing a business case, right? But we are talking something to identify. It means that we need to identify the sources or data or the documents that enable the skill gap. So furthermore, we need to explain the skill gap here. When I talk about skill gap, so we talk about the gap. The gap is a difference, right? So the skill gap is the difference between the current skills and the future required skill to perform a certain task or job. So there are two things in skill gap. First, the current performance, and second, the future performance, or sorry, future requirements. And therefore, we need to have some document or some data about these. First, data about current performance or current skill, and second, the data on the future requirements. Right. So we need to identify these elements as the sources of information for both current performance and for future requirements. That's all. As you can see, for this question, if you don't analyze the question, if you don't analyze what it is asking, then you may fail to provide the true answer. Okay, so when you see a new question, first task is to analyze what it is asking. Okay, so it takes time to do this, but eventually it may give you a good return. Now, when we understand the question, then we can identify the documents or some sources of data about skill, about current performance and future requirements. As I'm expecting, as I'm thinking, then I believe that you are working at some certain organization. So under an organization, they may have certain way to measure the performance, and you can list these documents down. For example, before you join a company, you may have some kind of test. So the test result here can be used as a benchmark for your current performance, or your previous educational background or your own qualification could be served as the current level of skill. You may graduate certain university, you may learn certain things from your college. So they could be your basis, they could be your foundational skill. Okay, so that is your current performance. But sometimes we graduated a few years ago, so we may forget the things that we are taught at school. Therefore, the current performance should be measured periodically through the performance review from your manager. He may see the report and he may write feedback about your own performance. That is another data and it is more up to date. Or simply the HR department may send out some survey or questionnaire about your skill. It is kind of like a self-assessment. You can highlight what skill you are strong and what skill you need to improve. Okay. And finally, some business may invest in the e-learning and self-learning or self-development. So if they have such system, then they could be served as a pretty good source of data on performance, a good source of data on performance. Simply, when you perform the test on that system, then they save your result. And of course, it may highlight your own skill there. But it is just half of the equation here. It is just about current performance. And now we need to have the future requirements as well. So the manager may need to understand what could be the job description of the future, or what kind of tasks a person may need to perform in the future, or in certain circumstance. For example, then you may be a future leader, or you may be the future procurement manager. Then your director or your line manager or the current procurement manager should understand what could be the requirements for such manager, what kind of skill are needed. So he may rely on the current job description and maybe future technologies or some future analysis of what the job may become. Okay, so mostly we can rely on the description and the requirement, the job requirement. Second, Sometimes some new business may not have the good data on the job description, and in fact, they don't know what this task may perform. So they may rely on certain standards, and fortunately, we have global standards from SIP. Under this standard, then SIP lists out all of the knowledge and skills a manager an or a procurement professional should have. So this could be future proof, and then you may rely on this one as the requirements for the skill for your employee. So from both of these, from both sides, so we can analyze the current performance and the expected performance in the future, and then we can calculate, draw a roadmap for the improvement. Okay, so this is about skill gap analysis and close the gap, right? So we need to identify the first current one and the future one, and then we close them together, right? So, but the question just asked about the elements could be used to analyze the skill gap. So we just list out these sources of data and analyze them. Okay, so this is question number 4 of L5M1. Unfortunately, I think that I need to update this question on our enemy as well, so that in the future you may practice with the same question. All right. Here, as I'm talking, I don't believe that we can retain a lot of information. But if you try to practice yourself with different questions, then you can improve your skill. Now, okay, so that's all for L5M1. And now we should have a short break before I continue with L5M4. Okay, and as I said, L5M4 is somewhat more predictable and I think more straightforward than L5M1. But before that, I would like to have a short break before I continue. Okay, let's continue. Okay, I just returned from a break. Take a cup of water and refresh it. Now, let's talk about L5M4. And I think that this exam is pretty predictable. You can totally prepare for this. Per the question from Michael, I think that you should take L5M4 first because at least it has something to do with procurement. And second, the list of topic in L5M4 is not that expanded. There are only two new parts. Actually, I think that only one compared to level 4. That is chapter number 3 in L5M4. They talk more about some budget financing and advanced financial measures like using different hedging methods for currency hedging and commodity. So we only have one new chapter, but with L5M1, we have the whole 4 new chapters. Okay, so L5M4 is somewhat easier than L5M1. All right, now let me examine the question in L5M4. So the first question is about early supply involvement. And again, we have different advantages and disadvantages. So again, you just need to brainstorm your answer here. For the advantages, then of course we have access to better technology, especially when our supplier has higher level of technology or they have the proprietary technology and they have new innovation or something like that. Second, it is faster time to market because we have the support from supplier. So they may have more idea or they may have more practical way of undertaking the product, of developing the product. So it may speed up the time to market. Third, we may improve the relationship through this exercise and supplier may appreciate our effort in this. And finally, we may save costs on research and development. Normally, R&D is pretty big investment and it requires a long-term commitment on this. But if we can learn the technology from someone else and we can learn from our own supplier, then of course we can shorten that path and get some more cost saving. For the disadvantage, then there could be some risk, like we may lose the intellectual property if they are not handled with care, or there are some confidential information that we disclose to the supplier and they may be intentional or unintentionally disclose that. So before we go into such project, then we should have a non-disclosure agreement. And finally, this is pretty obvious. The supplier may provide two perfect option, two perfect solution. So in that case, then when they go haywire or when they become insolvent, then we may have some real trouble. So it may increase our dependency on them, and we may want to manage this risk, like having some alternative or having some contingency plan in case that they don't work anymore. Okay, so the early supply involvement, pretty straightforward, and you can brainstorm possible answer. The second question is about analyzing different financial ratios. So as I am aware, there could be some table and there could be some number, so that you need to crunch these numbers and make comment about potential supplier performance and also whether we should accept that supplier as our strategic supplier. In L5M4, it is advanced financial management. So we need to have more advanced ratios. So there could be something that we are very familiar with from level 4, like current ratio, quick ratio, gross and net profit margin, and the gearing ratio. Then in level 5, we have other ratios like the return on capital employed. Okay, this is the queen of efficiency ratio. The debtor days, creditor days, and inventory days. So we need to remember a lot of formula here. Now, just a quick reminder about current ratio and quick ratio. Due to the length here, I don't put them in the slide, but I link them with the existing article on the website on internet. So I rely on a website known as Investopedia, and it is a very good website for you to learn more about financial analysis. So first, we look at current ratio. So current ratio is the fraction between the current assets and current liability. In other words, they say like the current ratio compares current assets to current liabilities, and to see how well a company may meet their financial obligations within a year. So we can just divide the current liabilities. We can just divide current assets to the current liability. And if the result is greater than 1, then it's good. And if the result is less than 1, then it seems a little bit more alarming. But a single ratio should not reflect the whole company. Sometimes they may have some hiccups or some small struggle with the operation, but they are going in the right way. For example, they are investing in the new research, so that may return in something positive in the future. Now, let's do quick ratio. For quick ratio, or in other words, they may use the word test ratio, then we remove the inventories. We remove the inventories from our calculation, and we only cash, securities, and account receivables as the current assets. And under the denominator, we still have the current liabilities. So when we do this, then we remove the risky assets like inventory. They may become obsolescent or redundant. And just like with current assets, we should look for some result around 1, maybe slightly under 1, but preferably more than 1. So if it is around 1 or greater than 1, then that company is doing well. But if it is under 1, or even worse, a lot under 1, then that company is pretty alarming, and they may not meet, they may not pay the bill in the future, and that may risk the insolvency. Now, let's talk a little bit about gross and net profit margin. For gross and net profit margin, then they have different formula. Gross profit margin only consider the gross profit and the revenue. So we just need to remove the cost of goods sold from the revenue. Cost of goods sold, also known as the cost of sale or the cost of revenue. And the revenue here could be called sales or turnover. So we may have different synonyms to this word: revenue, cost of sold, and for this word. Okay, so we calculate the percentage of gross profit on revenue, and it just shows how well a business is managing its cost. On the other side, we have the net profit margin. Okay, so you can see it here. Net profit margin consider all the costs, including the operating costs, the taxes, and the interest, and it shows the overall profitability of the business. And if we have positive net profit, it means that the company is profitable and they may sustain their own business in the foreseeable future. However, we should also be careful of analyzing gross profit and net profit, because it doesn't reflect the cash flow. Sometimes a business may have positive net profit, but their cash flow is negative or the cash flow is zero, then it is not good as well because they may lack the financial resources to pay their future obligations. For gross profit and net profit margin, then we should look for positive, and the bigger the better. For gross profit, the ideal number should be between 40 and 60%. And for net profit, the higher the better. But normally they may range from 5% to 20%. When I talk about gearing, it should be a group of different formulas. So we have different formula for gearing. And the first one is debt to equity. This is the most popular, and I think that this is the formula that Cips mostly use. So you can just learn this one, debt to equity. We take the total debt divided by total equity. Overall, then the gearing ratio assess the leverage, the level leverage. In other words, how much of the company is financed by debt. As you know, when we have too much debt, we may have the problems to pay them. We may have a problem to pay them. Sometimes we need to use the debt to finance our need. But if we don't have positive return from that investment, then we may risk paying out the interest from our own budget, and that may affect the future cash flow as well as undermining the operations in the future. So a company, a highly geared or highly leveraged company may have problem in running in the long term, So therefore, we need to pay close attention to the gearing here. And they for the debt to equity, then they should be under 100%. It means that we have less debt than equity, and the debt are more manageable. So for the supplier here, you are looking for some suppliers who have lower debt than equity, or this ratio is lower than 100, and the lower the better. But sometimes they need to have the leverage to make the investment. It is understandable, but the debt here should be manageable. Now, let's go into the ratios for level 5 only. Okay, first is the return on capital employed. The return on capital employed is calculated as the percentage between the earning before interest and tax, or EBIT, and the capital employed. Capital employed are long-term capital, so we take the total assets minus the current liability. Why? Because in the next year, in the next 365 days, then we need to pay off. The company needs to pay off the current liability. So this current liabilities could not be used to finance a long-term investment. Therefore, we only calculate the capital employed by taking total assets minus the current liabilities. And EBIT here is also known as the operating profit. So the higher the better. And the first ROCE, or return on capital employed, should be positive. Otherwise, it shows that this company is running at a loss. And then we need to have a pretty decent return. It means that how much or how well the business is using its capital. Normally, a highly efficient business may have ROCE somewhere between 10 and 12%. And lower efficiency may mean this number pretty low, like 3, 4, or 5% only. So we need to examine this one and understand why this business or why this supplier has low or high efficiency. And we tend to want to work with the highly efficient supplier. So we may look for the ROCE between 10 to 12%. Sometimes we may have some highly profitable and highly efficient company, but it's pretty rare. And the acceptable number could be 10 or 12%. The next ratios are also about efficiency. We have debtor days, creditor days, and inventory days. So when we talk about debtor and creditor, you should think about their position to the respective company. In the US, they don't call it the debtor days or creditor days, but they call it the day sale outstanding or the day liability outstanding. So debtor days mean how long on average you may collect from your customer. If we have the word debtor is someone who owes you money, so you need to claim back the money from them. And for a supplier, then the debtors here are their customer. It shows how well they manage the credit on sale. The formula looks like this. We use the number, the account receivable from the balance sheet divided by the total sales and multiply with the number of days. The number of days here depends on the period. So if you are looking at a quarterly report, then you use 90 days. If you are looking at an annual report, then you use 365, right? So it should return to some number, and that is the number of days. Normally, a healthy business often allow their customer to pay within 30 to 45 days. And you can see the model number here, 37.30. That is the average debtor days for company in the US. So we are looking for some company to have the debtor days between 30 and 45 days. But the longer the worse. The longer the worse, and the shorter also the worse. Because if it is shorter, it means that this company is highly efficient at collecting debt. And it means that they may ask us to pay very soon. So we may look for some decent number. Okay, 30 seems nice. And this company or this supplier may allow us to buy on credit. But the longer means that they may lose their cash flow, and they may have some problem in collection. That is also not sustainable. Now, similarly, we have creditors day. So for creditor days, it means how long for a company to pay off their supplier. Again, just like with debtor days. Then we look for some number that range between 30 to 45 days. Okay, that match the debtor days. So for creditor days, then we have account payable also from the balance sheet divided by the cost of sale or cost of sold, and multiply with number of days. Normally, if you are looking at an annual report, then we use 365, the number of days within a year. It should return something, it should return some number like 30 or 45, similar to the debtor days. Finally, we have the inventory days. Inventory days measures on average how long for a unit of inventory to get sold. So it is also a matter of efficiency. Highly efficient business should not let their inventory sit idle for a long time. So to calculate this, we take the average inventory divided by the cost of goods sold or cost of sale. And average inventory is the average number between opening and closing inventory. Okay, so we have average inventory is opening plus closing divided by 2. And the result should return some number, and this number should be appropriate. The a highly efficient business should have the shorter inventory days. In other words, we should not see some business to have their inventory spiling or piling too much, right? And it takes them on average 200 days to sell a unit of inventory. It means that they are producing too much and they cannot sell all of their products, and that may make them find it more difficult to collect the cash flow, and that is not sustainable. That is not sustainable. Therefore, we also look for inventory days between 30 to 60 days. Okay, but maybe always take 30. When we talk about days, then 30 is nice. But we should also compare it to the industry average. For example, a supermarket should have inventory day less than 7. Less than 7. Simply, they have a lot of fresh grocery, and the fresh grocery are perishable. If they don't sell within a short time, then all of those inventories will become redundant, and they need to dispose them off. That is very wasteful and also affecting their cash flow. So for inventory days, we should look for some number, maybe around 30 or maybe smaller than that, depending on the industry and depending on the nature of that inventory. Okay, so this is about financial ratio. For this one, you have two tasks. First, calculate the ratio. And second, compare it to the appropriate benchmark. So for each ratio, they have a separate benchmark, and you need to look at that threshold benchmark and see whether this business is doing well or not. Now, we are moving on question number 3, and this question is about the fixed and float exchange rate. So these are two arrangements of currency management of the central bank. In the world, we have several ways to manage the exchange rate. The exchange rate here may fluctuate, or they can be fixed or pegged to certain value. The objective here could be different. Some countries want to have the stability. Some countries want to have the competitiveness when it comes to exporting the goods. So the number here may be different, and we have very different systems in the world. For a fixed exchange rate, then the value of that currency is fixed or pegged to certain value of other currency. For example, the West African francs and Central African francs are pegged to euro, and they are fixed at very straight rate. Okay, you can look for this on the internet, and they have a lot of information about different currency in the world. So there are certain advantages and disadvantages to this kind of arrangement. Of course, they may provide the certainty when it comes to purchasing the goods overseas, but also they may destabilize the internal or domestic economy, because it doesn't reflect the supply and demand of the currency in that company. So the central bank has less room for adjustment, and therefore it may subject to very huge fluctuation and circle of the local economy. So most country doesn't fix their currency, but they allow it to float. Fixed currency only help when you are trying to look for a foreign supplier. But for the domestic supplier, that could be a boon. And for your own organization, that could be a boon, because your company may not sell your goods overseas due to being less competitive. On the other hand, we have the float exchange rate. Float exchange rate allows the currency to fluctuate and to change the value every day. So most currency, and including the major one like USD, Euro, British pound, Japanese yen, and South African rand, and even Botswana pula is having they are having the float exchange rate. They allow the central banks in each country to adjust their policy and to support the domestic economy and to achieve some objective like economic security or the competitiveness in exporting. But for individual company, then they are also fluctuating. The value change every minute. So it is very difficult to plan a budget. And sometimes they may see steeping costs or higher costs or inflation when it comes to importing the goods from overseas. So for this is a problem. So the company from the economies may want to use some hedging methods like using forwards, futures, and options to fix and allow the price to be allow the price to be fixed and to be more certain to ascertain the price. So it is easier for them to make a plan and budget for such purchase. Um, each of these each of these mechanisms may have some advantages, but they also take up other disadvantages. So when it comes to purchasing from overseas, then you need to understand the market and their exchange rate arrangement so that we have the appropriate measure. The final question is about the advantages of internal benchmarking to external benchmarking. As you may know, we have four types of benchmarking: internal benchmarking, the competitive benchmarking, functional benchmarking, and generic benchmarking. So, except internal benchmarking, the rest are external one. And when we talk about benchmarking, then you need to clearly understand that this is a strategic practice where a company or business unit want to learn the best in class practice and improve themselves based on those practice. For each type of benchmarking, they may have different comparator or different subject to benchmark against. So for internal benchmarking, then the business unit here try to find out the best in class unit under the same holding company and learn their practices. For comparative benchmarking, then we are looking for the best in class comparator. For functional benchmarking, then we look for the best in class procurement practice in the world. And for generic benchmarking, then we look for the best practice from the best department or the best company in the world. For example, you may look for the practice of Apple or Volkswagen or Mercedes. So you can apply the lesson in your own company. For benchmarking, then it is a time-consuming practice and also quite difficult one. So benchmarking requires a lot of data collection and comparison and looking for the practice that enables such performance. So when we do internal benchmarking, then it is the easiest one to do, and of course it has a lot of advantages. First, the data is more available. We all have the data on other business unit. We can ask for the number. We can ask the serial measure for the number here. Okay, so we can easily identify the best in class unit. Second, we may have the similarity in the processes, in the culture, and in the environment. Okay, so the benchmarking is easier to do, and we understand that we may overcome the resistance easier because simply we are looking for a similar business and they may share the same culture. So if we apply their practices, then our team members may maybe more maybe agree more to do so, rather than learning from someone totally strange or some stranger or someone outside of the group. Then here we learn from someone from the group. So it is we may have lower resistance. And the gap here is easier to identify and easier to realize simply because every business under the same company may have similar measure. They may have similar measure. So we can identify the gap easier and also learn their practice. Furthermore, the practice here could be updated in real time. That best-in-class unit may they are also adapting, so they may update their practices. So when they have some update, we can learn from that update too and understand why they do that. And finally, this kind of benchmarking doesn't require, normally it doesn't require any external consultant. So of course, lower cost and higher confidentiality. We don't need to share our information to anyone else. So that is some of my points about advantages of internal benchmarking. And that is also the end of our session today. So if you have any further question, feel free to reach us on WhatsApp or write us an email. We always welcome your opinion and also give us some suggestions for upcoming event. So this is the end of today, and I hope that you may learn something new from my session, and I'm happy to do so. Remember that if you are preparing for level 5 exams, then you can also purchase our practice questions on Udemy. Thank you very much for your participation today, and see you in other event. Okay, see you. Goodbye.
Bye bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.